Hello, welcome back to the podcast. My name's Hannah. We get to talk about somatics today. We get to talk about the nervous system. We get to talk about how the nervous system and the brain come together. So, basically, one of my very favorite conversations to have that I haven't had in a long time. So, Karen, I am so excited that you're on the podcast. This is Karen Canham. She focuses on brain health by working with our nervous system. She's also a 2-4 sacral generator, so maybe we'll talk a little bit of human design in this conversation as well. But as always, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Who is Karen in this moment, in this season and chapter of your life, and anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, thanks so much, Hannah. I'm excited about this conversation as well. And the Karen is always evolving, and there's a lot of change in my life right now. I'm going through a separation, and so that has kind of jolted my system and really kind of had me step back and look at things differently. And the process through this, I think of in the past for me would have been something that was disabling, even, or a very shut down mode. And now my body's handling it so differently that I can continue to show up for people and move through this pain, that I'm experiencing and still feel joy at the same time. So, really allowing my system to feel all of that and be in it and be present and be authentic about it, talk about it in a regulated way. And so um, I'm really excited to, see what comes up next. I feel like there's a big change in my life. And with something I feel like that is painful that happens in anybody's life, there's always such a huge lesson. And then how can we take that and, be a better person from it?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I love these conversations because not that we want the difficulty to happen or the dysregulation, but you're exactly right. When we go through, it kind of allows you, and it's interesting that it's happening in this period of your life where you've done a lot of nervous system work because it's allowing you to almost see how your body is responding in a real situation. We can't well, I don't know. Maybe I should ask you that. Can we purposely dysregulate our nervous system, or is this practice kind of authentic of if we're kind of thrown in this situation? Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And I love this. I can tell that you're a deep person and I'm going to love this conversation. So, yeah, I mean, I think we can look at that at so many different ways, right? We can say, like, well, I choose to do drugs, for example, and that can really dysregulate my
Mm,
system. Um, I choose to do something maybe that isn't like as severe of like drink too much caffeine and that's going to send me into a sympathetic state. So yeah, I think that we can in a sense. Most of it is probably subconscious when we're doing it.
yeah.
I don't think we're purposely trying to get into these situations. Why would we, right? But yeah, I mean, ultimately, when you go through a real experience, that's where the growth lies. That's where the work lies. It's being human and it's part of all of our process. And someone that sits in the space and holds space for others, I think it's so important to be real and say, like I go through the same things and we can show up differently and process these things through differently.
It is super interesting. I kind of laugh back when I started my business, and now I've experienced so much and gone through moments of wild dysregulation that I didn't even really fully understand at that time. But in the beginning of my business, there's so much conversation about things that I hadn't experienced. And now that I've experienced them, you're right. I feel that I'm able to meet not just my clients, but humans on a deeper level. On I'm able to hold space. Obviously, you and I hold space for people. So in my breathwork classes, like I'm able to hold a much deeper container than 3 years ago, Hannah, that hadn't gone through all of all of these situations that happen in my life. And it is an interesting perspective to hold. And I don't think we all hold that perspective of this pain is teaching me a lesson. And I'm
Mhm.
curious where that perspective came for you. Was it a conscious effort, or was this always how you've handled dysregulation and hardship?
Oh, definitely not always. It was a learned experience that took a while for me to learn. And someone said to me yesterday that fear is how did they word this? No, um, emotions are not facts.
Mm,
And I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, there is a lot of teaching around that, right? And to me, it's like, well, that's interesting to even connect emotion with fact. It's like,
mm,
it's information, right? And so to embody that, I think there's a difference of like hearing that and hearing like, yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense. And I can kind of think of it as like, oh, my emotions are information or these things that are happening in my life and moving through my system. It's all information. There's a difference between cognitively going through that in your brain and then allowing that to really like embody into your body and become like part of who you are. That process took me a while. And I think with all the work, including breath work that I love so much, that somatic piece of it, whether it's breath work or yoga or, specific somatic experiencing work that you're doing, those types of things for me were the things that allowed me to embody what I was really the information that I was being given. And
mm,
then it created transformation. I don't
mm,
think that transformation really comes with information into the brain, so that top-down information. It's great because it helps us to lose some of the shame, I think.
yeah.
But until we can really like get into the body, then there's not like a huge shift that we'll see of how we show up and how we are in our lives.
Mm, I like that you just brought that top down. Can we talk about that? I feel like that's a little, it's like going back to elementary school, let's learn. But I think that this is a really good foundation to life for somebody that may not have heard the difference between a top down approach and a bottom up approach. Can you
Mhm.
explain that?
Yeah, so a top-down approach would be us learning through the brain. So, like cognitively, we're learning a concept, where a bottom-up approach would be something that we're feeling the sensations into our body. The reason why these are so important is because our nervous system is acting like a loop from our brain into our body, and it's constantly on a loop. It's feeding information from the brain to the body to the brain. And I think a really cool fact is that 80% of that information is coming up from the body. So
Mm,
much more is coming from the body than is coming from the brain. And we've been taught to kind of ignore our body. We haven't been taught to listen to our body for sure. And definitely when we try to just change what's happening in our brain, like we might have a thought that comes in and the thought is not helpful to us.
mm,
And we just try to, say an affirmation, for example. Yes, there is studies behind that and there is help with that, but it's shutting down information that's coming from our body. And we
mm.
continue to just push it away and shut that body down even more. And that's when our nervous system can then get into these chronic places of the dysregulation.
So, what would the opposite be if we're not saying the affirmation, but we want to feel safer? Or I'll give you two options because I feel like that one's really deep. One option, what would we do if we instead of saying the affirmation I am safe, or option two that you could choose is like I am financially stable, or I'm financially successful.
I actually love that I am safe.
Oh, good.
And again, I'm not saying it's not helpful, these
No.
affirmations and to say those things. There is things that are helpful in doing that. But the difference would be is we're kind of tricking our brain when we're just saying, I am safe, I am safe, I am safe. And there could be potentially some rewiring that's happening based off of that. I mean, we are changing kind of like our thinking and our thought patterns. Instead of saying, I am not safe, then our brain starts to be like, I'm safe. And there can be some rewiring that happens there. However, there's a huge difference. It feels almost like when you're doing that, it's like a control and like a pushing. It doesn't feel
Mm,
natural. And when we do something where we start to create safety in our body, one of the things that we can use as an example is there could have been an experience that you had that was not safe at all, and you still carry with you, and you know that you carry that with you. And part of the work that you can do in this somatic experiencing is revisit that specific situation and really feel into the body of where is that sitting currently, and then feel into all of those sensations that come with it. What maybe it feels hot, maybe it feels cold. What color is it? What emotions come along with it? The more that we can really give it space to be heard, and I know that can sound silly to a lot of
mhm.
people, um, the more that it's processed through the body, and then it's able to reform, and those neural pathways are then recreated in the brain.
Mm. I know when we first chatted, we talked a little bit about parts work, and this is sounds like a great intro into your type of parts work that you do. Um, I do want to preface it that there's a lot of different parts work kind of coming up in social media, and like there's traditional internal family systems. There's I don't think that you're trained in IFS, correct?
No, not
Okay.
specifically.
So there's many different types of parts work, and I love all of the different forms. So that's why I want to hear what you kind of do with your parts work, and then I have a story to share with what you just said. But yeah, what is your definition, your experience with parts work?
Yeah, so going off the example that I just gave, when we're experiencing this situation now in our body, then we can start to ask more questions and get more curious. And we can start to figure out like there's some hypervigilance that has formed for me.
Mm,
And that hypervigilance, I really feel that in my stomach area. I'm just giving an example here.
hmm
And I feel like closed. I feel collapse from it. I feel like protected. And then we can ask more questions on a curiosity. Well, how is that serving you today? What is it still doing for you? Because these parts everybody has, and they're not good or bad. We just need to be more curious about like, are they causing us harm in this present moment? Are they still acting because they form for a reason to protect us?
mm,
And a lot of times they formed at a younger age, and they were helpful in that moment, but now as an adult, they're really stopping us. They're creating the stuckness in our current life. And so the goal is to form a relationship with these parts and have a better understanding somatically how they feel in the body so that you can have awareness of them quicker. And then you can move yourself back into the driver's seat instead of allowing that hypervigilance to run your life, for example.
mm. Yeah, for me, it's kind of been like building relationship. And I love the question that you said, asking it, what is it doing for you right now? Because especially like anxious, feeling anxiety or feeling nervous or feeling angry, whatever it is, I always feel those heavy emotions and I'm always like, how do I get it to go away? Like, I just feel like it's not serving me right now in this moment. So I like that question that you formulated is how is it serving me in this moment, and then exploring why it's there, and how it's showing up. And to me, I've not done a lot of traditional IFS, but I've played around with parts work for, gosh, probably like a year and a half now. um, and it's kind of building a relationship with these different parts, and it's being able to recognize them a little more easily. And for me, again, I'm such a like, I need to know what's going on. I'm a big definitions person. So when I have this, it's like a persona, like an actual person within my body. And I'm able to be like, oh, this is so and so. Can't you name them or something too? I feel like some people do that. I haven't done that, but I like that.
Yeah, and yes, you can give them names, whatever, feels right for you is what you
Yeah.
want to do. I think listening to what you said too, I think it's important to point out that this isn't a multiple personality thing. Um,
No.
this is exists in everyone. Some other common parts that you might see in people is controlling,
Mm.
perfectionism, overachieving. And so those might be a little bit more tangible for people to kind of grasp onto and seeing those in themselves or other people. Um, this is just a normal part of the human experience. And there's a lot of benefits of not just the awareness of what these are in our system, right? But it's creating compassion. I like that you use that word relationship because it is having a relationship with them, respecting them, right? Respecting them for what they're there for and thanking them for everything that they've done for you and what they continue to do for you. But again, it's really about taking your adult self and coming back into that place. So a lot of the work that I'm doing is to be able for you to be in a place where you feel really self-led.
Mm.
Um, it, and with that is this place of compassion, connection, empathy, non-reactivity. Um, when we do this type of work too, we're really able to see these things in other people.
Hmm.
And ultimately, there's a journey through this process, right? It can feel sometimes when you see it in other people, maybe it's irritating at first, but ultimately, as the work progresses, it really becomes like this compassion piece for other people because you've developed it for yourself and you understand like this is just part of the human experience.
Mm. Yeah, I think that it does build, again, kind of going back to our conversation of building capacity and like having being able to hold that deeper space. That's what I've noticed is you are able to recognize it, but it's not, I'm trying to think. I don't think that I have felt, at least at this moment in my life, maybe in the beginning, but at least at this moment, I don't get as frustrated with people because it's like you can see pretty clearly, like, oh, this is what's coming out right now. And that's okay. That's just where they are. And having more compassion in being, yeah, less reactive. I know that's the title of your book is From Reactivity to Resilience, and I love that word resilience. But is that kind of what you're talking about in the book as well? Is this movement from being very reactive to being resilient?
Yeah, it is what I'm talking about in the book. And what's interesting is a couple things. So this was something that I really struggled with in my life. So I had childhood trauma. I developed anorexia as a child and then got help for that as an adult. And so that was kind of the beginning of my process and my healing process.
Mm.
When I healed from that eating disorder, there was really one main thing that I felt like it was still such a big effect on me that I allowed other people to affect me too much.
Hmm.
And a lot of that was this not understanding these parts that were going on with me and other people. This reactivity to resilience book that I wrote does not speak about parts work at all in it. A lot of tools that I was utilizing before, I would call now as just like a management type of tool. And this is kind of what I was
Mm.
explaining before of, and all of these are great. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Yoga, love yoga. That was like the first thing that ever I was able to get into my body. I mean, that is a somatic practice as well.
Yeah.
And it was really life-changing for me. Meditation, I talk about mindfulness, and all of these things are wonderful. And I don't think one thing is the right answer for everyone either.
Yeah.
So parse work may not be the right answer for you at all. What my experience was and what I found with a lot of my clients is that these things worked. And we saw a decrease in their reactivity level, their stress level. But there wasn't like this big shift in the way of being. It was like I have to
Mm.
continue to utilize these tools to like bring me back. I constantly need to
Interesting.
bring myself back into this regulated place. It didn't seem like it was sustaining the person. I should have done more data on this and now I try to, so I have a better like starting point, but it seemed like there was this I'm really reactive, right? I'm like at a 10. Every day is like a 10. And then, now I'm using these lifestyle changes, these medical lifestyle changes. And now, most of my days I would say I'm more like a 5, but I feel like it's like a management tool. I'm
Mm.
managing myself and I don't want to feel that way. Some people are cool with that, right? But there was some people that was like, it just still feels like I'm I'm managing this symptom that I
Mm.
have, and there has to be a better way for me to just be in my life. Like I
Mm.
want to feel like I did when I was a child, where, I had all this wonder and, I was like flowing and it was playful. And that I really got. And I feel like the nervous system work and regulating the nervous system is the answer for that.
Mm. Interesting. Yeah, it's almost like kind of a band-aid too. And not, I mean, I think that we have helpful band-aids and maybe ones that are not as helpful because we can say alcohol is a band-aid too. Like, I mean, you're definitely covering up the symptoms of not feeling ultimately, or drugs, or running a lot and getting all of those endorphins and maybe escaping, I don't know, going to the gym a lot and escaping being home, or yoga or breath work. I think that they're all, some tools are very helpful and some are hurtful, and some tools are going to work for you and some aren't. But the nervous system regulation, so what is that?
The nervous system regulation is a different way of showing up that is rewiring your system, and it's sustainable and it's held.
Mm,
Um, I guess I can explain it as a lot of the work that we're trying to do with getting into the body and feeling these feelings and exploring like these parts is we're trying to create safety.
mm,
All of the things that have happened to us throughout our life, there's our system responds with, okay, that didn't feel good to me, so I'm going to create this part in order to protect myself.
mm,
And they just continue to pile on, pile on, pile on. Um, and when we're able to let those things release, then we're able to get back into that state like we were in a childlike state. I can say that the regulation piece I like to point out is it is normal for us to be on the spectrum. So it's
yeah.
normal for us to feel activated in states that, feel a little bit more like anxiety,
Mhm,
like this go, 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 more of a hyper state. And it is also normal for us to be like, I feel depleted.
mhm,
It's when we get in these places where it becomes chronic, where it starts to
mhm,
become an issue for us. Um, it becomes an issue for us in our daily lives of how we show up in relationships. There's chronic conditions that can develop from that as well. And so ultimately, what we're trying to do when you talked about capacity before is our capacity really can shrink, with all of these
mm,
things that we go through, and then we start to create these protector parts, the capacity that we have to be in these discomfort zones of activation and like shutdown, we're really getting shortened and shortened and shortened. And so the work that we're trying to do is we're trying to create safety of feeling into these zones. And so that your body starts to understand like there's not a reactivity to it when we are in a heightened state or we're more like in a shutdown state. Does that make
mm.
sense?
Absolutely, yeah. How do we expand those zones? How do we expand our capacity? Is it by making ourselves uncomfortable? Is it by doing the harder things? What does that look like?
I think we can, and again, everybody's different, but I think we can expand our capacity in different ways. And it's really up to you on like what you're, what you want things to look like for you. When we talk about capacity, I mean, there's people that, and there's nothing wrong with this, so I don't be careful how I say this, but there's people that are like, I work a 9 to 5 job and I'm paid $20 an hour and I continue to do it. And it creates a lot of stress for me. It creates financial stress for me, and it just piles on. But when I think about the alternative, when I think about like, if I were to move forward and I were to move forward with like this business that I have, my system becomes very activated. And then so I go back to this like safety place.
Hmm.
So it doesn't have to be something that is like this traumatic experience that we could have experienced that we're like feeling into. That can be part
Mm.
of the work that someone wants to do. But it can be more of like understanding why is my system doing that? Why am I reacting in that way? And ultimately now I know like this is not what I want to do. Like I'm not happy in this role because I don't really get to use like my skills, I'm struggling financially, like all these things. So we're describing something that feels like a stuckness.
Mm-hmm.
The capacity piece of it, we can also kind of describe that as the window of tolerance. So when we look at that, and I kind of like this analogy because a lot of times when I say capacity to people, people are like, I don't want to do more. And it's not about
Yeah.
it's not about doing more when we say increase your capacity. It's about being able to handle more. And um, again, that doesn't mean taking more on. It means that my system is able to handle more and more stress. We can describe it that way. And I'm not responding to it. And therefore, when I don't respond to it, then I have more energy to focus on the places that I want to focus on too.
Wow.
So to increase this window of tolerance, we can do something that is like, yeah, I was in this accident when I was in college and like the porch fell at this apartment building and people were hurt and it was like really traumatic. We can feel into that, right? Where is it into our body? How does it still sitting with us today? How is it still affecting us in this present moment? But we can also do something that is more of like this job component of like, I just feel stuck and I don't understand why I can't like move out of this place that I'm in. And we can look at that somatically and then parts work wise.
That's super interesting because I do hear that a lot is I feel stuck and I don't know what to do or I don't know how to get out of it. So that's an interesting invitation that we can look at that somatically instead of just looking at it as the situation of I feel stuck in my job and I don't know what to do. And I think that's a cool approach to be like, hey, what if we just instead of brainstorming ways, right? Of like, well, you could do this job or you could apply here, or you could shift your career, you could go back to school, is not necessarily changing it. And that's one of the things that I love the most about somatic work is that often when we're unhappy, we think that something big needs to change. And sometimes it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. Sometimes we get to the point where we're like, okay, yeah, no, I do need to leave that relationship or I need to change my job or I need to move. But we don't always have to start with that. We can start in our body and how can we feel into the discomfort? How can we sit in and expand again, expand that capacity? It's not necessarily, I love that you said it's not about doing more, it's being able to hold more because I'm sure that comes up with you a lot too, but that's a really good point. It's not always about doing the big thing, making the big change. Sometimes it is, but it's not always.
Yeah. A
Interesting.
lot of times, it really is about doing less. And I hesitate to say that too, because there's a lot that people have on their plates these days.
Yeah.
They're wrangling in their kids, they're taking care of their elderly parents. they're working and, not to mention just the world that's so fast paced, things are changing
Mm.
so quickly. The political environment, like all of these things, right, are real. Um, but it's really, I had someone yesterday say to me who was very much in a sympathetic state. And I've known this person now for probably a year. And every time I see them, their energy is very sympathetic.
Mm.
Um, and it was interesting to me that a lot of people that come to me, they feel like there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure to show up in a certain way.
Mm.
There's a lot of pressure for them, for their children to be a certain way as a mother. There feels like a lot of pressure on like how much responsibility they hold of like, what school their child gets into, or ultimately, how they end up. Um, and that I have to do all of these things. I have to cook 3 meals a day. I have to, I have to take my daughter to all these places because she has to be in all of these things. My house needs to be like clean. I feel like I'm constantly cleaning. And
Mm.
um, I think a lot of times when people come to me, they're like, well, these things need to be done and I'm not wrong in what I'm doing. And so to
Mm.
start to think about like it's not a place of being right or wrong. So to like reframe that type of thinking, it's more of like what is it that you really want? Let's just pause here for a minute because a lot of people can't even answer that question when I ask them that. And so to be able to get into the body really helps with getting clearer and clearer on what it is you really want. And so that you can align the things that you're doing to get you to the place that you want to be.
Mm. Mm. And sometimes starting with what you don't want. I think that was actually on a podcast that I posted a couple of weeks ago. Um, but if you don't know what you want, start with what you don't want. What is not working in your life, or what do you not want to continue in your life? Keep accepting in your life. And accepting, I mean, yeah, like mindset and physically, like I don't want a relationship where I'm spoken to disrespectfully. Like focus on that, and then you can start there. Okay, so you want maybe a relationship that is grounded in respect and mutual respect for each other. Like that, I don't know, that is sometimes helpful, because you're right. Isn't that like the biggest question is what am I here for? Like what do I want? And a lot of times you're right, we don't. I think that's a hard question to ask ourselves. And how would we address that in the body then? Like, where do you start? If you have any tools, just even as listeners are listening right now and they're like, I so resonate with this. I have no idea what I want in maybe one area. So choose one of the big ones, like relationship, career, family, um, money. I don't know. I don't know what the other big ones are. Um, where do we start there?
So this is really interesting to me. And I was on a podcast recently where I was like, I don't do goals. And I know that can sound
Mm.
really awful. I feel like goals can create so much pressure.
Yeah.
And why are we creating that goal in the first place? Um, I really like where you're saying, I think it is much easier to start with, well, I don't want to keep reacting. I don't want to keep reacting to my husband. And then we can ask deeper questions. Well, why don't you want to? I really don't like who I am, when I respond in that way. And if I were to record myself and see myself, I would be
Mm.
embarrassed by the way that I looked. I don't want my daughter to see me like
Mm.
that. But ultimately it creates, I mean, we can go deeper and deeper, and then it's like, it creates a lot of stress on my body. And I've seen, my mother, um, how much stress she's gone through and then like health conditions she's had from it. And I don't want to end up in that place.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, you're right. Like a lot of it is like people get to the breaking point of like, this is not working for me anymore. And it's really about like, how do we shift what isn't working for you anymore and
Mm.
find a new way of being? Um, as far as like, I think especially in like entrepreneurship, people are like, well, how much money do you want to make this year?
Mm.
And I always laugh at that question. And I'm like, I just don't think that way. Maybe I'm a terrible business owner. Maybe it's creating a lot of problems for me. I don't know, but maybe I need to work on my money more, which I know that I do, that I still need to work on like my money wounds more.
Yeah.
But it feels that's not why I'm here. It's not
Yeah.
about the money to me. It's about how I feel. So if I can focus on how I want to feel while I'm creating this business, that is going to be the thing that keeps me moving forward. Now, I don't think everybody's that way. Some people will be like, it really does move me forward to say, like, my goal is to make $500,000 this year.
Mm.
And most people, I'll be honest, most people I work with are not that way. Most people I work with tend to be more visceral.
Yep.
So a lot of times what I see when we get into that, or like um, I want to have like 20%, that even be normal? No, that would be really high. I want to have
It's
like
true.
12% body fat as a female.
Yeah.
Um, like those things, what I've seen in my experience, because my whole wellness business started more with like nutrition and
Mm.
exercise. And it was a lot of like these external things that you want, right? I want these external things, and that's going to bring me happiness. And ultimately, it doesn't. It never
Mm.
does.
Yeah.
And it also feels like a lot of like pushing type of energy, like striving to get to these places and just continuing to override your system. Like right now, a good example would be like the situation that I'm in. I've slowed down. My exercise. It's like I don't go and do like a very intense workout because I know it feels more stressful to me when I'm done.
Yeah.
And so really having that awareness of like what's coming up for you in your body is helpful to then choose like what's going to be the best choice for me now. Maybe it's just like some slower movements that I need to do and like that's enough.
Mm. And I love that because you said right now, because it's okay to change it. And that's one of the other things that I do in my business is talk about cycles. Like our cycle as a female is going to, maybe we're in luteal phase and we're like, yeah, we don't want to go do a hit workout or try to hit some PRs weightlifting. But then 3 weeks later, 2 to 3 weeks later, we're in our ovulation phase and we're like, yeah, I would love to do that hit workout. And I do think that we limit ourselves a lot by putting ourselves in these boxes of like, oh, I'm just somebody that doesn't do intense workouts, or I'm just somebody that doesn't do, X, Y, or Z. And if you can meet yourself where you're at, also seasonally, right? I mean, I know you're in Florida, but it's still cold for you. No matter where you are, if you're in the winter, you have that energy of winter, and we're just not really created as humans to go be doing that again, that like kind of summer ovulation phase stuff. And I know a lot of people I've been talking to, and they're like, I'm feeling the winter, and being okay with that. And I love that you're sharing being in your why, being grounded in your why. Like that's what I always used to say with fitness stuff, especially. It's easy to talk to because if you talk to the gym culture, they're like, you can't take a day off. You have to go hard. If you don't, if you're not in pain at the end of your gym workout, then you're not doing it right. Like all of those things. And being rooted in, why am I going to the gym? What am I wanting to get out of it? And for me, I can only speak of my journey, is my health, like physical health journey is I want to feel good in my body and I want to move my body because I love my body and I know that I feel better when I'm moving. And when I allow that to be my why, then it's like, okay, I didn't have to go to the gym and do a hit workout today. I just went for a hike, or I just went for a swim, or I did yoga or Pilates, whatever works for you, whatever you feel in that season, then you're still achieving your goal. Or I guess you don't do goals, but you're still achieving what you want, right? Versus I want to go to the gym. Okay, why? Because somebody told you that you need to go to the gym 5 times a week? Like, what are you hoping to get out of that? I think that's really important. And I like your not goals, especially, I mean, we're talking in January. This will probably be posted in February, but still, the beginning of the new year, I just had a conversation with someone else, and yeah, we were like, don't do goals. Goals are out. I feel like we're kind of getting to the point where it's not, it does create a lot of pressure. I like that perspective though. It creates a lot of pressure. And I think I talked about that on that podcast, but we set goals and we don't know the why. Like, why is your goal to lose 20 pounds? Why is the number 20? Do you need to lose 20 pounds? How are you going to achieve that? I don't know. There's so much. We could go down a whole spiral.
Yeah. I loved just listening to you because it is like this. What you were describing is like being a child again. And I was like
Mm.
picturing my niece too. It's like she doesn't think about, she's not like, well, I have to get my steps in. She's not thinking like that. She'll
Yeah.
just say like, okay, I feel like I'm gonna go for a walk. Let's get outside,
Yeah.
and it's just very innocent and natural. And when we can be more in that state, we're so much more creative and there's so much more clarity. All of this stuff that's put on us, it just starts to create so much like cloudiness and energy sucking. And it really takes us away from what our true nature really is.
Mm. I love you spoke of like, yeah, going back to the awe of a child. And absolutely. That's why I love just watching, witnessing children. If you don't have them in your
Mm.
life, I don't know, go to a restaurant and just watch kids. Like they are hilarious, first of all. I was just hanging out with my nephew literally before we hit this podcast. He's 10 now, but he just says so off the wall stuff and does so off the wall stuff, but they're hilarious. But watch them and you're right. Like, yeah, I feel like I need to go outside. Cool, go do it. Like, or the awe, absolutely. Like, how can I create more of that awe effect? And we can do that as adults, but would you say that that comes when we have a regulated nervous system, or can we experience it still in dysregulation?
Um, I think that because from my experience, I've been chronically dysregulated and I've worked with a lot of chronically dysregulated people. And when I say like when we're chronically dysregulated, we're stuck
Mm,
in a certain zone, whether it be in that sympathetic place or that shutdown place, that doesn't mean that we still don't experience
mm,
regulation as well. It's just that we're there way too much.
mm,
Um, so yes, I do think that you can experience that when you're dysregulated, but it's few and far between.
mm.
Yeah, I think that when you start to come into this regulated place, I'm really trying to find a better word to describe that as well. Um, it really is this sense of feeling healed, which I'm trying to find a better word for too, because I
Mm.
think that can bring up a lot of shame when we use that
Yeah.
word of, oh, now I'm healed and maybe other people aren't healed or healing is a journey to me too. So I don't think
Mhm.
there's ever like a end.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's just a different way of being. I mean, we can look at a child, right, and we can see like a very different way of being in the world than,
Mm.
most likely what we are as an adult, and we can really take a lot from them. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of people are like, well, that's not possible. I mean, I can't I operate in that way. I can't
Mm.
operate that way in my career, or, my as a parent. And then we ask those deeper questions of like, well, what does that mean? What feels scary about that to you? What's going to
Mm,
happen if you operate in that way? A lot of
mm,
people feel like they're going to lose everything.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's so much there because it is a fear of change and not knowing and the unknown and I think that we heal on levels. I think that's how I like explaining it is we're never fully healed. We never arrive because what's that like? Like if the destination is the goal, then it's death. Like death is the destination. So why are you making like the arrival the goal? We never arrive anywhere, but we do heal on levels. So even trauma, I mean, we do heal our trauma on the level that we can in this moment, in this season, in our capacity, in our nervous system capacity for this you know, Friday at 1:50 p.m. Like we can do that, but then there's another trigger that's going to come up. Maybe it's 5 years from now and it's a deeper healing and you can go into a deeper level and I think healing and um our journey is this I don't even know what that shape is. It's like when it spins down, like a cyclone, like a hurricane, a tornado, a tornado.
Attorney.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a tornado, a cyclone. I don't even know what a cyclone is. I don't know why I said that. Like a tornado, that shape that we're going down constantly. We're able to go deeper if we choose to go deeper. But yeah, we're never fully healed. We never arrive at our destination until I guess until we die. That's
Yeah, I really love that you said that. And I think that's why I hesitate to use those words because what was popping up again for me was just like a lot of pressure. And I think when people
yeah.
are in this journey, I've seen so much, which started like with yoga of like reaching enlightenment, right? And then like
Yeah.
these other modalities, it's like there's so much pressure to get to that point, and then there's a lot of shame that's created, that I'm not to that point. And then a lot
Mm,
of things like judgment where people are and aren't. And
mm,
yeah, it's just not I maybe there might be people on earth that are at that place, like maybe the Dalai Lama's at that place,
yeah.
right? But it's not the goal. The
Yeah.
goal to me is to really continue to be a better version of yourself and
Mm,
love love yourself and love others.
mm, mm. I love that. When people are wanting to connect with you, continue to learn from your beautiful wisdom, how can people stay connected? Where do you hang out the most? Where can people find you?
So that's a great question because they can find me online. I mean, they can just Google Karen and wellness and pick their poison of whether they're an Instagram user or a LinkedIn user. Those are the two social media platforms that I
Okay.
tend to use. And my website's there as well. And you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to have any conversation.
Mm. You're the second person that I met that uses LinkedIn a lot, and I don't know if this is a sign. I feel like I'm not a LinkedIn person, but maybe it's a sign. Last question. If you could go back and gift your younger self a somatic tool or perspective that you now use often, what would that tool or perspective be?
Hmm. I would say when other people are um, communicating with me from their parts, which I wouldn't have understood at that moment. But if I
Mm,
would have understood that, um, I would have paid a lot more attention to what was happening in my body.
mm,
I guess I wouldn't even have to know that. I would just say, like, when I was in my 20s, I wish I would have paid a lot more attention to what was happening in my body when I was around other people because it gives you so much information about like then the direction that you should move on based on what that communication is telling you.
mm. That's wild. You're reminding me that my mom used to share, she used to ask me, like, how did you feel after you hung out with that person? Going on a first date, right? That's a really great example, but going on a friend date or hanging out with someone at work, coming out of that and checking in with like, how do you feel? Do you feel energized? Do you feel tired? Do you feel frustrated? Do you feel joyful? You're a sacral authority too, so in human design, like, do you feel lit up? Do you feel energized? Do you feel open, or do you feel closed and like contracted? Does my belly used to hurt when I was a child. Like, that's how my mom knew that something was wrong. And so noticing that, like, does your belly hurt? Do you have like that knot in your stomach, or what do people say, like that kind of like a drop in your gut or whatever? And noticing all of those things, you just reminded me that my mom would ask that, like, how did you feel hanging out with them? And you're right, it tells you a lot. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming on. I love our conversation, Karen. I appreciate your time, your wisdom, your depth of communication and exploration, and I am very excited to share this conversation with my audience and my community.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Hannah.